I mean, you mentioned your dad because I've been thinking. I'm a fan of yours. I mean, I think it's obvious. You're my first guest on the podcast. So, and like I
I
said,
didn't know. I wouldn't have
yeah,
done it.
and you know, I've had so many off the record conversations. So you know how much I respect and admire you. But I always think about this. People like yourself. At what point did it click? Like, at what point did you recognize that okay, this is the path I've chosen to take? Was it an influence you had from any of your parents, your mom or your dad? Or was it something that happened to you while growing up that made you say to yourself, okay, this life of activism, this life of leadership, this life of trying to change Nigeria for the better? Even and for me, I always say this to my friends, even though you've never held a political position and the way Nigeria is going, you may never. But I've always said this to my friends that you've written your name on the sands of time. Like, if Nigeria's history is ever to be written, or to be like, we're never going to talk about Nigeria without not mentioning Sowore. It's not possible. Like, no serious person can ever say that Nigeria is this or that without mentioning people like yourself or Farotimi, and people of that clique that have influenced Nigeria positively. But I've always asked myself, like, what was it that happened? Did your dad, or were you influenced by your mom? Maybe in secondary school or university,
This is
something happened, or
I think that I've always had like a stubborn streak. Maybe it's because I'm from Ondo States where it comes in with our DNA.
yeah,
But, there are events that shape people's lives.
Of course,
And mine was when I was 10 years old. I've spoken about this so many times when we had a police issue in the village and they came, raided the village. I'd never until that time seen that many policemen in my life. It was Christmas Eve. We're preparing to have Christmas. And Christmas was the only big event annually that we had, the New Year's. So that week was our happiest week as villagers. And then the police came in the last market day of the year and had an altercation with young people. And came back at night to raid. And it was terrible because here is my dad in the ceiling hiding away from policemen. The man I thought was courageous, sweating through, not ceiling now. Our type of ceiling was this is made of mat. So, and then upon the whole raid, there was a lot of information about abuse, sexual harassment by the police of the young girls in the village. Some of them, my cousins who were 17 years old, who really never recovered. She just died recently of stroke. The trauma was massive at that time. But where I was 10 years old, I'm there swearing by whatever is out there that if I make it out of here alive, I'll fight not to let this happen again. That was the promise of a 10-year-old. But those kind of promises you can make to yourself too many times, and they don't come to pass. But then as I grew older, secondary school, I was there. I had, circumstances that which I questioned my dad. He was my teacher both in primary and secondary school. I was actually homeschooled in primary school mostly.
wow.
I was traveling with my dad in Elijah area, and we'll pack all our things in the canoe and just row the canoe to his school where he taught as a teacher, and come back like 3 months later. And so I had all those experiences, ask questions in the middle of the night from him about plans and the Northern Star and all that. So, but that was the defining moment, I should say. Then came university. It was like I was waiting for it. And, I met all these activists. I'd been reading about them. I'd read about Bamidele Aturu, who did not shake hands with, the governor of his state, who was a military man, when he was supposed to pass out as an NYC. And I was like, I want to do that. So I've always wanting to do a lot of things. And then when the university came, it was a perfect moment and a perfect storm to be the activist I've always wanted to be. And I met Femi Falana. And they was just great. And he connected me with Gani Faweme, whose chamber is like 5 minutes walk from here.
Wow.
And Becca Ransom Kutis, whose house is like 5 minutes from here.
Wow.
So that's why we cut our teeth with all those lawyers and activists and when the struggle for military rule came, against military rule came, we did the work, likely. I wasn't the only one. I like to say this because sometimes people ask, were you the only one? Yes, of course, a lot of student activists around at that time. I can't mention all their names. And we had lawyers outside. We had a lot of great people across the country, and in some cases across the world, who supported the struggle at that time. But I did become a national figure when I was in my 20s, when I became the student union president of the University of Lagos, after I was expelled for the first time in 1992 for participating in Babangida Moscow. And then 1993 came, the Abiola struggle came, June 12th. So those are the early stages of the national part of the struggle.
Yeah.